How to get started with my story. Let's start with some basic info. I'm Alex Granger, 21, business major, English lit minor. I'm pretty boring, right? Basic stats: dark blonde hair, green eyes, tanned skin. I'm 5'10", and I weigh $155. I'm skinny and pretty average. Basic lifestyle: classes in the morning. I work in the late afternoon 5 nights a week. I work as a checker at a grocery store. Don't laugh, it pays the bills. I live in a 3-bedroom apartment with 3 roommates, plus me. Yes, 2 guys share a room. Near as I can tell, they are 2 friends with benefits. Whatever, they don't bother me, as long as they keep the noise down. I'm bi, so I don't care, but I'm a little jealous of the relationship. My life is boring. My hobbies? Running, parkour, keto cooking, manga, sunbathing in the raw. We live on the 4th floor, and there isn't any building opposite us, and nobody below on the road can see anything. And I hate tan lines. Besides, I'm not the only one in our apartment to catch some rays. So why not? I'm still boring, but I have a nice tan. My relationships? Non-existent. My last boyfriend left a couple months ago because I'm too poor to take him on real dates, and he said my gifts are cheap, so I must be cheap. He's not wrong. I am poor. I'm a student, so of course I'm cheap. Even he called me boring. I'm also thinking he's just using the breakup as a tactic to force me to buy him something expensive to say I'm sorry, and is waiting for me to buy him a custom skateboard. He's going to be waiting a long time. I'm broke, I'm cheap, and I'm boring. Now you can add single to the list. My current goal in life: find a boyfriend. Which brings us to now. You ever get that horny feeling that you just want to find somebody to hang out with? It's Saturday night, and I'm looking for some fun. Some friends from my old economics class, God, I hate filler classes, are throwing an end-of-semester party, and they are inviting a ton of people, both from our class and some of their neighbors, and for whoever else wants to come. Price of admission is to bring a 6-pack or 12-pack and share. I brought 12 bags of Cheetos to share. They never said it had to be liquid or alcoholic. Besides, sometimes you just want something cheesy to snack on, and a veggie tray is boring. My friends live in a townhouse among a row of townhouses, the Sandpiper community. Their party had turned into a block party. I'm not a heavy drinker, just a social drinker who knew his limits. I prefer wine over beer, but they had both here, and I nursed a cheap Chardonnay as I wandered. Some people had pulled out a stereo system in front of one of the townhouses, and as the music blared, about 20 people danced. I joined them, casually flirting with some people, but not settling down with any one partner. Story of my life. As I wandered past a table filled with even more snacks, a gorgeous man interrupted my thoughts. "Hi," he said. "I'm Spencer, but my friends call me Spence. We're getting a game together at the Henderson place, but we need a couple more players. Care to shoot some hoops with us?" Spencer was an inch shorter than me, and he held a red cup half filled with beer. He had long, very curly black hair that hung just a little past his shoulders, but he had it pulled back with a turquoise strip of cloth. A white t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off hung on his well-muscled frame, and old Levi mid-length shorts with a rib or two curved around every curve of his shapely butt, and his very worn gym shoes complemented his muscular, hairy legs. The thin silver chain around his neck contrasted with his olive skin and helped to show off the blue in his eyes. The little curve of chest hair peeked out from around his collar, but that wasn't what caught my attention. His left wrist subtly showcased a thin beaded Pride rainbow bracelet. The man was gay and not afraid to advertise a little. I was getting very turned on. His bracelet wasn't what caught my attention either. I'm Alex. Where are you playing? I stuttered and kicked myself for not being suave and sexy. God, I came across as the nervous boy next door. At least it wasn't a cheap line. When Spence turned a little, it displayed the sides of his shirt. He didn't have any. Instead, he displayed a nice side view of his left pec, his left ribs, and his left nipple had somehow escaped the fabric. Guess what I focused on? A second later, I dragged my eyes away from his sexy body and to his sexy face and to his sexy eyes and tried to salvage the moment by saying, "Nice bracelet." He turned a little bit more, his shirt opening a little to accidentally give a great view of his toned chest. My eyes immediately left his eyes and focused on his chest. Spence had a tight, narrow waist, and his shirt had a ripped hem that teased a view of the top edge as his boxers peeked out over his shorts and flashed a little bit of pale skin. And the narrow bit of dark hair that descended from his navel into his boxers. An incredibly sexy view, and the blood pounded in my veins. Spence turned and pointed to a nearby driveway. Oh God, he shouldn't have done that, because his shirt lifted to give me a great view of his well-rounded, well-shaped butt. It must be one of the 7 wonders of Vegas. I averted my eyes before I got caught and mentally recited the words to some song. If I didn't get my hormones under control, Spence would see how much I liked the view. Too late. Spence saw and smiled. Crap, he knew I had checked him out, and now he would know how much he turned me on. Spence diplomatically said, "You like? The bracelets, I mean? I make them and sell them on Amazon. I have a friend who has an online store." "How much?" I asked, grateful for the save. $10 for the basic ones, he said, like this one. More for more complicated designs. Nice, I said, pulled out $10 from my wallet and handed it to him. Why don't you show me some after the game? I used to be pretty decent shooting hoops back in high school. From where I'm standing, you got game, he said. When we're done shooting hoops, I'll show you a few things. Lead on, I said. As I turned, his blue eyes flickered up and down my body, pausing on my legs. A leg man. I smiled inwardly and pretended to scratch my thigh, thus lifting the fabric of my shorts up a little. He rewarded me with a slight nod. Whoever said that guys are perverts must have been talking about us. It was fun to flirt with Spence. Spence led me down a couple of houses to a wheeled basketball stand being set up by the curb. Several people stood in front of it shooting baskets. Another guy made adjustments to its height until it was 6 inches below regulation standard, its tallest setting. Another guy placed a half-dozen cinder blocks on the base to keep it in place. They had rounded up 6 players, including me, but we were all strangers. We did the evens-odds thing to split into teams. I and my new friend Spence were on the same team. A guy on the other team yelled, "Shirts." Spence yelled, "Skins." It only took seconds for Spence to remove his shirt, but time moved in slow motion. I couldn't help but stare and drool at the sight of his toned abs and his tight ribs and his chiseled pecs. A little bit of dark chest hair complemented his pecs and his nipples and around his navel. He tossed his shirt on the sidewalk. Spence interrupted me when he said, "Your turn." Once again, he caught me staring. I took my shirt off, revealing my shaved chest and shaved abs. Spence raised an eyebrow. Was he asking if the rest of me was shaved too? I simply looked at him, smiled, and said, "Wait until later." He laughed. I tossed my shirt by his. He pursed his lips, nodded, and said, "When we're done here, how about some dancing?" "We'll be all sweaty," I said. Somebody bounced the ball to us. Spence caught it and said, "I don't have a problem with that." We played for an hour, sometimes trading players in, and we did become sweaty. However, when we were done, rather than go dancing, we went to his place, 2 houses down. Spence still lived at home with his mom. She had divorced his dad years ago. The important point? The townhouse would be empty for hours. The living room had a leather couch, a leather recliner, a large flat screen, and a set of shelves. On the shelves were several wrestling trophies with Spence's name on them. Spence was a champion wrestler, which meant he liked to be in control. A top. Good to know. Because of shooting the basketball so much, we'd been very physical and gotten very sweaty, and our hormones made us very close. We were also still shirtless. We surrendered to the moment, sat on the leather couch, and made out. Small, tender, gentle kisses. At first, he tasted a little of salt and smelled of a musky deodorant. His eyes met mine, and the desire connected us. The kiss became deeper and playful, and I licked my way to his right ear and kissed hard just under his ear. I shifted positions and realized that Spence was as excited as me. At the same time, I ran my fingers through his short chest hair, savoring the stiffness of his nipples, the silkiness of his chest, of the desire in his eyes. I let go, trailing my fingers down to his feet, and carefully removed his shoes and socks. After I had finished, he did the same for me, softly massaging my legs, kissing my knees, making me shiver. Damn, I like leg men. I sucked on his neck, kissing the same spot over and over, and was rewarded with a small groan. That kiss would leave a hickey. It'd be a while before he forgot me. He moaned, again, excited. I kissed my way to his shoulder, slowly, gently. His turn to shiver. "How about I give you a massage?" I whispered. "Turn over." "Wait a moment," he said, and ran up the stairs. He returned with a condom and lube. "Just in case," he said, and kissed me, gently touching his tongue to mine. We made out, our tongues getting into the action. It wouldn't take me long to get to the edge. In a second, he lay across the couch on his stomach, pillowing his head on his arms. I kneaded the tight muscles about his shoulders and his neck, softly caressing his scalp as I ran my fingers through his hair. He moaned again. I leaned over and kissed the center of his neck, and then kissed my way down his spine, savoring the taste of his skin, of his sweat, and gently kissed the small of his back. Spence moaned again. Slowly, I worked over every muscle in his back, down to the edge of his boxers. He shivered again and whispered, "That feels good." "Then you'll like this," I whispered. "Turn over." He did, chest now up. I kissed my way down to his navel. The front door opened. "Damn," Spence said. 2 women stood there, eyes wide, mouths wide. "Damn," I said. Whatever conversation the woman had been having immediately stopped. The woman in the lead looked at the condoms and the lube and said, "Damn." Awkwardly, I said, "Hi." Spence levered himself up and uttered, "Hi, Mom. This is Alex, I can explain." "This isn't what it looks like," I said, and for some reason, both Spence and I slightly laughed. The other woman said, "I'm glad. For a second I thought I saw 2 almost naked men getting it on." "That's what I saw," the lead woman said, from the flash of annoyance in her eyes. I guessed that was Spence's mom. "Spence," she said, "we need to talk. Tell your friend to go home, and when I finish with my business, we need to set some boundaries." I inwardly chuckled, feeling a little embarrassed for Spence. His mom, the other woman, and 2 other people walked into the living room. One of them nervously laughed. The other person shielded her eyes, but not before getting a good look at the 2 of us. We sat up, and I fumbled for our nearby shirts. I mumbled, "Sorry about this." We weren't expecting anyone," Spence said as we pulled our shirts back on. "Nice to meet you," the last woman said. "I don't approve of sexual relations outside of marriage, but if you must, please purchase decent condoms first." "Yes, Mrs. Henderson," Spence said. I stifled a giggle. Spence's mom, now completely pale, continued speaking. "Perhaps we should go to the kitchen while my son and his boyfriend get presentable. Follow me. Remember, Spence, I want to talk to you alone." Spence and I had one last kiss before I left. I had one very fond memory of tonight. Spence could do some wicked things with his tongue. Am I addicted? Maybe. Too bad I didn't get his phone number. The next day, I had the day off. I dressed in a pink button-down shirt and dark khaki slacks and drove over to Spence's townhouse to ask him out on a date the old-fashioned way. For fun, I stopped at a grocery store to buy a dozen bright yellow roses, and I took the lady's advice and bought a pack of condoms and some lube. Who knows? Maybe she's psychic. After I pulled up in front of the townhouse, I beeped my car and casually walked up to the front door. Would Spence want to see me again? Was last night only a fun romp? I knocked 3 times, a little nervous. It took a moment before the door opened. It wasn't Spence that answered. Spence's mom did, and she said, "I almost didn't recognize you with clothes on." I shrugged and said, "Spence around?" "Come in," she said. "Just so you understand, I was completely mortified to walk in on you and my son. There is now a boundary that will not be crossed. I've told my son this, and now I'm going to tell you. If you can't respect it, then you're not allowed here." "Boundary?" I asked, expecting something like no shoes in the house, or cars aren't allowed on the road after 10. "What is it?" Why did I feel like I was in trouble? "Alex, I'm glad you're here." Spence came running down the stairs in a pair of black gym shorts and an old Godzilla t-shirt and bare feet. "I've got this, Mom." His mom went back to the kitchen, definitely staying within earshot. Spence led me to the sofa he and I had made out on last night. It made me smile. Him also. I gave him the roses, and he leaned over and lightly kissed me. He excused himself a moment to get a vase and some water for the roses. His mom and him whispered something. I waited, looked around the room at the dozen or so wrestling trophies. That would explain his tight body. A minute later, Spence came back, the roses in the vase, and he set the vase on a nearby table. "How mad was your mom?" I asked. "Embarrassed would be a better word," Spence said. "We had a serious heart-to-heart last night. She knew I was gay, but she never thought I had grown up. For some silly reason, she still thought me a virgin." "Oh my God, you're not?" I said with sarcastic horror. "I've had 4 boyfriends. What do you think?" Spence said. "Last night, Mom wanted to teach me all about safe sex, but I showed her my condom collection and taught her a few things. She realized that I'm not her little boy anymore. Thank God. Anyway, let's get to her new, annoying boundary." And he gestured in the air with air quotes. "This should be interesting," I said. "She doesn't want us to have sex in the house," Spence said. I stared at him, not sure if I heard him right. "You're right, that is annoying," I said. "Suggestions?" he asked. I thought a moment and then said, "Any other issues?" "You should have seen the look on her face," Spence said. "Mom doesn't want a repeat of last night. I guess her friends gave her a hard time." I took hold of his hand and said, "Is there anything more?" "This one gets kind of awkward," he said. "She wants to meet my boyfriends." "Okay," I said, and leaned in and kissed him. "Well, time to obey the rules. I'll go talk to your mom while you get changed, and then I'm taking you out to lunch. Have you ever been to Ureshi Teppanyaki? Spence smiled and said, You mean the fancy Japanese restaurant where they cook the food in front of you? I've never been there. Softly, I said, You're in for a treat. Why don't you pack a bag and stay at my apartment tonight? I'll call in sick tomorrow, so we'll have all night. I was rewarded with a grin, and he held up one of the rainbow bracelets he had made. I held up my wrist, and he slid it on. With a very sexy smirk, he said, I'll make waffles for breakfast. Remember how I said that I lived in a 3-bedroom apartment and 4 people, including me, lived there? Though it meant rearranging my closet. It wasn't long before we were dividing up the bills 5 ways. Crazy as it sounds, a year later, Spence and I redid our finances and got our own place. The end. I'm Gio, and thank you for joining me for this story. I'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.